Without further ado, introducing our first guest speaker. Comes to us with more than a decade of multifaceted experience from games artist and designer through to UX design, all underpinned with a deep understanding and appreciation of psychology, but most importantly, as Andrew mentioned, a former media student of West Nottinghamshire College. So please, without further ado, put your hands together. Opening Create Expo 2024, Stacey Ray!
My name's Stacey Ray, and I'm going to do a brief presentation of me finding my way through the creative industry. So I'll start with a couple of facts about me. So I did, in fact, study here many moons ago. I have 10 years industry experience, and I have 2 pet rabbits. And I also like anime, I like games, I like music festivals, and I like anything horror, so Halloween, horror films, horror games, that kind of thing. And I have a UX podcast, which is called UX Guide to the Galaxy, if anyone can guess where we got the name from. Anybody? You can check that out, and of course it's all about UX. So as you can probably tell from the podcast title, I am a UX designer. But before I get into what a UX designer is, I'd like to take it back to the beginning. When I was in college, so when I was a teenager, much like some of you, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a couple of different things I was interested in, so you can see some of them here, like art teacher, comic artist, graphics, game design. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But I knew that all those things had a common theme, which was creativity. So I was like, okay, I can work with this. I know that I want to work in the creative industry. So I went to West Notts College, as I've said like 3 times now. But yeah, I went there, still not knowing quite what I wanted to do. And for some reason I did choose performing arts at first. And I was really bad at it, mainly because I didn't want to be an actor. But what I did like was the stages and the sets and actually painting those and the creative side of performing arts. And this is where I had a conversation, I feel, which kind of changed my life. It was with a career advisor at the time. And they basically asked me what I liked doing, and I said, well, you know what, I don't really like the acting part, because it's embarrassing for me because I'm bad at it, but I do like the stage and the sets and painting. So he encouraged me to go back to college and pursue graphic design or multimedia. I ultimately picked multimedia, just, again, try different things out, because, again, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And whilst at multimedia, I tried things like web design, I tried illustration, I did lightwave, I did like a bunch of different things. Still didn't know quite what I wanted to do, but I knew what I really enjoyed doing was digital art. So I pursued that in Manchester Met University, which was animation with illustration. So that was mainly because I wanted to pursue the digital art side of it, but because I was also interested in animation. So this is a picture of the Manchester building. It's a very collaborative building. You get fashion, graphic design, like a bunch of different students that all work in this same building, and you can collaborate with anybody. And it was a great experience for me. You know, I got to kind of try a lot of different things. Some of these things I'll show you here, even though they're not great, but mainly I did specialise in trying to do digital art. And art in general. That is a picture of my rabbit, because when I got all my college work out, my rabbit jumped on the bed, so I took the opportunity to take a snapshot of him. And I did photography as well. And again, I didn't know what I wanted to do at the end of college. I was kind of like, at the end of university, I was kind of like, yeah, I do enjoy illustration, I enjoy the creative side of it. And I do kind of like games as well, so maybe there's something in game and art and things like that. Well, I wasn't 100% sure. So I went away to Thailand for a couple of months, and as you can expect, as somebody that had just come from being a student, I came back absolutely broke. So I had to get a job. So I was kind of like, still, I don't really know what I want to do. But by luck and networking, and this is kind of like the power of networking, is I had a friend of a friend that worked at a game company, and they were like, they're looking for a game artist, would you like to apply? So I took my portfolio, so all the work that I had from Manchester University and college, and I went for the interview. And somehow, I got the job. And that was purely through, that was purely through networking. If I didn't know that person and they didn't know that role, I don't know if I would have ever got into game. I don't know if I would have ever become a game artist. And these are some of the things that I worked on whilst I was there. So it was mainly 2D games I worked on. So all these were painstakingly painted in Photoshop, which took a long time, from scratch as well. And I worked with another artist there, so there's only 2 others that worked on the entire games. And they were psychology-based games, so they were mainly revolved around puzzles. And that was a great role. Like, I really loved it, and I felt like I could pursue it, but at the same time, that kind of role, I don't want to put anyone out of becoming a game artist, but that role is very competitive, and I didn't really have the 3D skills to pursue it. So I wanted to look into something else. So there was a game design role at the same company that I was at. So I decided to go more into game design, and they allowed me to do that in the company, mainly because it's a startup. So for those of you that don't know what a startup is a company that is very early stages of its cycle. So that means that they're a bit more flexible to allow you to kind of move through different titles. So if you're quite unsure and you kind of feel like you want to move around in your job, a startup job is like a great place to do that. So whilst I was a game designer, I was more focused on stuff like storyboarding and flows and kind of like the core mechanics of the game and the levels themselves. Which again was really cool, and I actually started feeling like, you know what, I'm inching towards what I love, and I started to realise that what I loved was design. It wasn't necessarily art or painting or anything like that. It was more the actual design and the psychology and creating something that people really enjoy using. So in my company, the game company, they started to develop an app, and this is where I moved into UX design. And the reason I did that is because at the time, I didn't necessarily want to be a UX designer, but I knew the product better than anybody else because I was like the 4th employee they hired. So I took on the role as a challenge to myself to kind of pursue it. And I ended up really enjoying it, and I think partly because it's more, it's very core design, it's very psychology based, it's very evidence based, it's a lot of research. I'll go into it more in a second. But I kind of got thrown into UX design at this point, and I decided actually I want to stick with this, I want to carry on. But I want to go with a new company. I'd been with that company for like 6 years now. So I decided to change companies. Just a quick drink of water, sorry. So I decided to change companies to Blue Prism. So this was like completely taking me out of my comfort zone. So I'd gone from games, which are relatively, I feel, easy to design, to going to designing robotic AI automation software, which was just completely throwing me in the deep end. But this was a great thing to learn because it was the first time that I actually got to work on really complex software where I had to do a lot of research, I had to really think about what I was doing, and I had to really understand a product that was really complex. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the challenge of it. And I wanted to pursue it more, but I knew that I wasn't that passionate about AI. I know I was passionate about UX design, but I wasn't that passionate about, at the time, like robotic AI software. So I moved into a new role a couple of years after that, which was more of a leadership role. So I was managing a team at this point, and this was for a film software. So essentially what it was is directors would use our cameras to shoot movies, like big budget movies, and then on these cameras they would have editing software, and that's essentially where I came in. So I was creating or designing the software that would allow them to edit movies. But a little bit into this career, I realised I kind of was passionate about games. So I wanted to find like a blend between games and software, which is ultimately what I've found today. So currently I work at Coherence. We create multiplayer networking technology. Essentially what we've done is, and I'll show a couple of screenshots here, is if you're making a single player game, it can take you years to turn that single player game into a multiplayer. With Coherence, you can do that in minutes, so it's amazing. And it's also lowered the barrier of entry to people that can create multiplayer experiences. So originally it was these like kind of high-tech geniuses that could do that kind of networking. And now we've got it so artists and designers can create multiplayer experiences as well. And a lot of this comes down to the core user experience and how we've simplified making multiplayer games. So what is UX? So let's get to the core of what UX is. So a UX designer is responsible for the look and feel of a product, website, app, software, or game interface. So we kind of spread across multiple different industries, and also we have multiple different touch points. We're associated with things like marketing, sales, with practically everyone in a business. We kind of have to associate with, because we're designers of the product, of any product that we kind of work on. So how do you do that? How do you have a product, and then someone comes to you with a problem, and you have to solve that problem for the product? How do you do that with as a UX designer? So I'm going to quickly go through that and show you this kind of workflow. This is kind of how we work. So first we empathize, which is through research. So we try to understand our users. We kind of understand their workflows. We see how they work with the product and everything like that. So essentially like analytics and data, just gathering data at this point. And then we define what it is, like what is the problem, what are we finding here. We use all that research to really understand the problem that we're trying to solve, or the feature that we're trying to create. And then we ideate, so we come up with ideas, we start taking this kind of problem and we start trying to solve it. And then we create prototypes, so here we're trying to get like, if we're trying to solve that problem, what does that problem look like? And we do this in a format of prototyping essentially. And then we test it, so you want to make sure that the problem that you've solved, or that the feature that you're creating is the right thing, you're doing the right thing for your users. So you test it, you put it back to your users, and you see if it's getting the right result. So it's okay if you don't understand that. It's a lot of words, but I'm going to try and show like a problem that I dealt with as an example. This is like a very basic problem when I was working in virtual reality. So the issue that we had, it was when I was working on the games, the puzzle games. We wanted to create a virtual reality version. But what we found is that when people wear the headsets, probably a lot of people know about this already, but when you put on a VR headset, it's quite confusing, it's disorientating, and movement can become a bit of an issue. So I started by doing some research. So I myself put myself in the VR headset, that's a picture of me, and I watched other people using it. I kind of saw how people moved around in it, and you kind of get something like this, which nobody wants. You don't want anyone to have an accident. And worse still, you get motion sickness as well when you've been in it a while. And a lot of we wanted our VR experience to be accessible to absolutely everybody. So we needed to find a way to make it so absolute beginners could use our VR experience as well. So I started ideating. So I came up with some flows, like workflows, I came up with some prototypes. I came up with some sketches of like what we could do, how could we alleviate that kind of movement. And what I found is that like the main issue is that when people are walking around, like that's where your issues start. So the more that you can keep someone like static like this, and they're just moving their arms, that immediately just becomes way easier for especially new people to VR. So what did I do? I went away again, prototyped some stuff. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a clip from the actual VR experience that I worked on, so this one here is not mine. I don't want to be sued. But this is an example of basically what I did, or what I designed in the end. It was kind of like a point and click, so instead of you moving it all like this, you would just point at something and click, and then it would take you to that destination. And then also, the puzzles themselves, when you did go into a puzzle, you would just click the puzzle and the puzzle would like open up into this space. So it didn't really need anyone to move around or walk. So after some testing, kind of trying this out with people, it became, it was very apparent this was a much better conclusion, that the less we had them moving around, the better the experience it was for them, especially for beginners and what we were trying to do. This was one example of something where everything kind of went right, but there is many things that can go wrong as well. But I just want to, just keep it very basic and just show like a good result that I got. So I want to go into a little bit about why I like UX design. So the reasons I like it is I love design. I think design is an amazing career to get into. I think you're solving problems. It's a blend of so many different traits such as creativity, psychology and science. And also it's difficult for AI to steal. So if anyone's like me, if anyone's scared of AI, design is definitely one of them that's probably going to go much later into the future, at least I think so, fingers crossed. And I think more than anything, why I'm passionate about design is that you're solving real world problems and making life better and easier for everyone. So, you know, you'll see like from the 90s technology that we had, barely anyone could use it, and then now we have things like Google and Apple that have created products that even my grandma can use. So, you know, we've come a long way to improving everybody's life through user experience. And also, you can work in so many different fields. So you can go into web design, you can go into game design, you can go into app design, you can design mobile interfaces. You can work at really cool companies like Apple and Google, and maybe some areas that you don't quite think about, like healthcare, driverless cars. All these have interfaces that need designers to do them in the right way, and especially if you work in something like healthcare, you'll see how much of a drain technology is, where nurses, for example, can spend weeks on doing tasks that can be easily done better with a better user experience, essentially. And also, there's a lot of emerging industries, and all those need UX designers. Yay! You've got artificial intelligence. This all needs to be designed. If anyone's used ChatGPT, how easy is that to use? That's because it's got a great user experience. Virtual reality, augmented reality, all these are going to need UX designers to pioneer the way that we do things. And then with that, I feel comes with a responsibility. Because we're helping pioneer all these big technologies, it also comes with an ethical and environmental kind of like responsibility, I feel. It's on the designers partly to make good ethical and environmental decisions when creating products. And I think that designers are going to be a big part of that, especially in the future. And this might be a bit of a controversial one, but I truly believe that more companies will become design-led. So at the moment, at the top, you have a CTO, which is more the technology side, and then you have the CEO, which is more the business side. And what you're seeing now is that actually designers are becoming those people rather than business and technology. And I think that's going to happen more. And if you don't believe me, the most famous company in the world is design-led, which is Apple. And that has always been design-led. So, okay, I get it, UX is cool, right? So how do you get in? So how do you become a UX designer? So first, I would say, start with the foundations, which is take a bit of an interest in research and computer science, because you'll be working a lot with those. And of course, you have to be passionate about design. Work UX into your projects. It's so easy, like anyone can do, like I'm trying to instill like a UX mindset into everyone in my company. So it's not just UXers that care about UX. So it's super easy to incorporate UX into your projects by just doing research, by thinking about psychology, thinking about the types of brain that users have, think about you know, the design thinking. And learn. There's tons of like free resources out there to learn UX. There's hundreds of hours of beginner UX tutorials on YouTube. There's a bunch of books, and there's a lot of free courses as well. And I did want to give some advice to any creative career. One of the main things that I kind of think is sad is that I go through a lot of events. I don't just go to UX design events, but I go to like data analytics events, developer events. And one thing that I don't see is young people. I see like all these seniors there, but the events half the time aren't really for them. They're for students, they're for young people, they're for people just getting into the industry. And this is like so important because you'll learn so much going to events, and they're so fulfilling. One of the key things that you'll do there as well is network. I know that you heard me talking earlier about how I got my first job, and that was purely through networking. And ever since then, I've networked like crazy. And now I have like, I'm probably in touch with like 5 or 6 different head of designs that I'm very close friends with. So if I ever need a job, hey. And develop a personal brand and a unique selling point. So I think that everybody should be thinking about what is their personal brand when they step into a career. I think that makes you a stronger person when you interview. So what is your unique selling point? So if there's 10 people that's interviewing for a job, what's going to make you stand out? So I'll quickly show my secret sources, unique selling points for me. So what I say is I work on complex software. I work predominantly with startups. So again, like I'm kind of trying to make myself more unique, make myself stand out. So if there is a startup that's working on complex software, I already hit those points. And I also say that I do a combination of UX design and research, so I'm not just a UX designer, I can do research as well. So I think it's really important to think about like what is your personal brand, what are you specialising in, what are you good at, and how do you kind of want to set yourself apart. So what did we learn today? So I feel like if there's two things to take away from this presentation, it would be you don't need to know what you're doing. I would say up until I became a UX designer, up until I became a UX designer, I still didn't know really what I wanted to do. And I've gone through quite a few different careers, and I'm finally in a career now where I see myself in it for life. So what I would say, if you don't know what you want to do now, don't stress about it, because I did when I was younger. And I think a lot of the time you just fall into things. I know talking to a lot of UX designers especially, they didn't know that they were ever going to be UX designers, they just kind of fell into it through like a role or a company just asking them to do it. And also that UX design is great, I think it's a great career. If anyone wants to pursue it, I would try and hit the ground running with it. And it's a very fulfilling career as well, so I'd always try and get, if people are interested in it, I would say definitely pursue it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stacey. We've got, Stacey's got us back on track exactly. We're on 10:30, so we've got 10 minutes now where we can open the floor for anybody who's got any questions. And this is the point where we wait for one hand. Oh no, Tony. Oh. Okay. Hang on. So everyone can hear, please.
Would I be right in saying that in your career, in your job, research would be a big part of it?
Massive, yeah.
Do you remember what you were like as a student?
I
hated research.
What?
You hated research.
Yeah, but I was also one of the best in the class.
No comment.
Research is really
students back until he gets to twist the knife.
research is really important. I would say, like anyone that finds it is a bit boring when you first do it, but actually, like you'll find that you create better products and better things the more research you do.
So I've got a question down here, if you don't mind, just so everyone can hear.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you what your favourite job was, and why you liked it.
Game designer, definitely. But game design, anything games is very competitive, so I got a little bit scared and I felt like I didn't want to pursue it. UX design is less saturated, I would say. But game design was definitely the most fulfilling, and I just absolutely love game design.
Any particular game? What style of game?
Oh, like games that I like personally or that I work on?
That you worked on. I mean, what's your favourite style of game that you
I only worked on one type. It was just a puzzle games. I didn't really.
Games.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were fun, and they did a lot of psychology, so that was interesting as well. Learning the psychology side of it.
Research is a small word for an enormous subject. So when you say research is the most important thing, can you give us some examples of what you mean?
Yeah. So a lot of the time, when it comes to UX design, especially, you find that you don't always understand the problem, and if you don't understand your users that you're creating a product for, it's very difficult to create a product for them. And what you find so often is that you get this, like software or games or whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is, but they create features and things and add things that users don't even want because they've not taught to them. The whole concept of UX design and research actually came from, don't quote me on this, it is a car company, I think it's Toyota. It might not be Toyota. It was a Japanese car company, and the guy that was heading up the company, at the time they were just putting absolutely everything into cars, like, you know, a horn, a second horn, a cup holder, all this stuff. And eventually the guy just turned around and he was like, do users even want this? Do people even want this in their car? Have you asked them if they want it? And the whole like team were like, no, we haven't. That's weird. Like, we don't do that. We just put whatever we think people want. So that's kind of where this research came from, was the idea that you know, if you don't know your users, you're not asking them and you're not understanding their problems and trying to really, you know, engage with them, then how can you even design? That's kind of my thought process. And the way that you do research is like through analytics, it's through gathering data, it's through observing users use your technology, it's through understanding their problems and listening to them as well. I think it's very difficult to design without it.
Any other questions?
Oh,
Okay, one over the front.
I'll throw one in. Hi there. Obviously, you said you're a little bit worried about AI, which a lot of people are. Do you think it can ever be complementary to the work you do, or do you think it's always going to be in danger of like taking it away?
Oh, I use AI every day, so I'm definitely an AI advocate as much as I am scared of it. And that's probably why I am scared of it. But I think that what will happen with designers is, unfortunately, I think artists are, you know, art and stuff like that is kind of like the one that's getting absolutely obliterated by AI a little bit. Sorry to say, but designers, because it encompasses like psychology, it's about understanding the human brain, it's about understanding behaviour, it's got a science to it, it's got psychology, it's got all these different things. I think that in the end, designers will learn to work alongside our AI overlords, and we'll kind of collaborate, and there'll be things that it'll speed up in the process for designers, but I think it's going to be very difficult, at least in the next 10 years, for it to completely overtake, like it might do development. I don't know if you've seen the developer AI that can completely like develop things in seconds. I don't think you're going to get that with design. Yeah, fingers crossed anyway. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any brave students feeling like they might want to ask a question? Yes, you're allowed to talk. Silence is deafening. Hey!
Not a student, unfortunately.
Yeah, just on the back of the AI bits, one of the things that we try and encourage the students to do when they are using research is to use things like Google Bard, ChatGPT, just to kind of establish that foundational level of research. Obviously, then it's about taking it from that and then getting to search for the academic credible sources for it. You know, is that something that you were in your role as supportive of in terms of that's good practice?
I think the issue is stuff like ChatGPT. I'll use that as the example because I've done the most research into that. But the thing is with ChatGPT, they found through other humans researching it that it's actually, if you ask it so you ask it to do something for you, and then it writes off this thing, and then you're like, okay, where's the resources for that? If it doesn't have resources for it, it makes them up. And it's actually lied as well. So you can't trust AI 100% because it's not a person, like, and it's just doing its best. It's just an algorithm. It's just picking up what's on the internet and throwing it together. So yeah, so for me, like using AI, I use it with a pinch of salt, and I always do my own research alongside AI. So again, like I try and work with it, and yeah, I because of the industry that I work in, I literally cannot just rely on ChatGPT because it's not like not stable, but you know, it's not correct.
Absolutely,
You know.
and I think it's really important that that's what's shown, that, you know, it's foundational, but in order to make sure you're getting the right information, the right answers, you do need to take it that step further.
Yeah, you need to do your own research.
So it can help you search for the answers, but you can't rely on it as 100%. You know, like you say, sometimes it will make things up if you can't find it.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Go down to front. Yep.
Sorry, this is a loaded question. So you're a former student here, long before I came here, and you spent time at university. So looking back now, what things did you learn during that time that have been really valuable?
I think the main thing for me was that at college, like I loved being at college. Like I was like, you know, I was a bit of a nerd at college. Like I loved coming, I loved being, you know. And I think the best thing was that I got to try a lot of different things, which really helped because I did multimedia, and also I did get pushed to do research, which has ultimately been like one of the biggest things in my career, is that I've always been strong about research, and that's absolutely kind of what makes me stand apart from a lot of UX designers who care a lot less about research. So definitely the fact that, I don't know how you guys work here still, if you still get told to do like a whole book's worth of research. Yeah, I can see someone nodding in the background. So it definitely and it's not just doing the research itself, it's getting into that mindset and that routine and that discipline of doing research, and not just running straight into an idea because, you know, whatever it is, like whether you want to animate, whether you want to design, whether you want to do an illustration, it's always good to try and do your research first, and not just running head into, you know, doing it first. So definitely that was a... Sorry, did I answer that correctly?
Yeah, just looking back, what was particularly valuable, so I think.
Yeah, the research part of it, I would say. Because you can apply that to absolutely anything.
Probably got time for one more. If there's anybody else going as far away as possible. Actually, yes.
How important would you say that managing time is when it comes to your job as a UX designer?
I get away with it more than others. When you're a developer, you definitely have more of a, like a developer or a, like sales or anything else in tech, they tend to get it a lot worse, because when it comes to design, it's like when they ask you like how long is this design going to take, it's like how long is a piece of string, right? I don't know. It's not kind of how design works. But it is incredibly important to be disciplined, because sometimes you do just have 2 weeks to get something out and you need to get it out in the best way possible. So I would say that time management when you get into the industry is very important, and it depends on how high you want to go, because if you want to be like that head of design or that head of whatever or the director, you need to be massively time management, or so it depends on how you want to get. The more junior you are, the more you get away with it, but if you want to aim high, then you have to be disciplined on time.
Well, thank you very much. Again, that was pretty much right back on schedule. So we will be taking a quick break, and then can ask everyone to be back in their seats here for 11 o'clock in order for the second speaker. But one more time, if you can put your hands together, kick us off. Thank you.